Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. And welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley, and welcome back to our summer series where we are featuring some of our amazing speakers that are going to be joining us at this year's convention and expo happening September 15th through 17th in Cleveland, Ohio. Today, I would like to welcome on Shay Hata. She is a realtor and speaker. She's an Ivy League grad and residential realtor in Chicago, Illinois, with Berkshire Hathaway. She specializes in the sale of condos, single-family homes, and multifamily homes in the Chicago area. She helps on average over 75 families per year purchase or sell homes in the Chicagoland area, resulting in over 30 million in transactions each year. She is known for outstanding client services and prides herself on going above and beyond for every client at every opportunity, which delivers exceptional results. Shay is also a certified residential specialist and national real estate speaker. Shay, welcome on to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be with you all in person in September.
Yes, we cannot wait to see you. We're so excited you're going to be joining us there, and you're here today to give a little preview and tease a little bit about what we can expect from your session, all of the fun and excitement you have in store for us. But before we dive into that, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you tell us about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and what's led you to where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm originally from Alaska, and I have moved all over the place. I went to college on the East Coast. I went to Dartmouth, and then I lived in New York City doing marketing and public relations for Fortune 500 companies, and I hated it. I'm a small town girl at heart, and so that was too much. So I've kind of bopped all over the place. I've lived in Washington, D.C., Minnesota, Chicago, Denver, Florida. I lived abroad in Spain for a little bit. And eventually, a chunk of years ago, I moved to Chicago. At the time, I was living in Minnesota, and I had an art education business for kids. My family kind of background is all entrepreneurs. And so I knew I always wanted to work for myself. And I sold that business when we moved to Chicago, and I didn't know what I wanted to do there. And so somebody suggested I get into real estate. I thought I would give it a try as like this part-time thing, kind of temporary until I figured out what I wanted to do. And I ended up just loving it. And that was 13 years ago. I love that it's different every day. It's always interesting. I'm learning, and I really love negotiations. I attended Harvard's negotiation program. And so the fact that I get to negotiate every day is my jam, and what I really love. So it's just been a great fit for me. So now I split my time between Denver and Chicago. I do real estate in both markets. I go back and forth, and I have a 9-year-old who keeps me very busy.
I love that. No, that's so cool. It sums up so much of, why people are interested in this field, that flexibility that it offers, being able to be that entrepreneur, take control of your own life, build the kind of business that you want to build. Really, really cool. And what is some of what makes our profession so great. And so cool about the Harvard stuff. I don't know that I've ever met someone who went to Harvard before, so that's very cool.
It's a great program. It's like a 2-week program. I recommend to all realtors. You used to have to go in person. Now you can do it online. And so you take their negotiation program that is taught by Harvard business professors. And so it's really helpful in business, but it's also really helpful in terms of lead generation to be able to say to your clients that you went to Harvard's negotiation program. Brings in a lot of clients as well. So I feel like it's a wonderful program that every realtor should do.
100%. I mean, when we talk about bringing value to our clients, like what better is there to say than like, hey, I'm a Harvard level negotiator.
Exactly. Yeah. And now, especially because you can do it from home over the computer, it's kind of a no-brainer to me for people to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great bit of advice. Definitely check that out, you guys, as you're planning, your next couple months as you're planning your convention. Put that on your calendar, do some researching, do some Googling. That would be such an asset to bring as you work with your clients. How did you get into teaching? And tell us a little bit about becoming a speaker and why you decided to go down that path.
Sure, absolutely. So my previous business was an art education business. And so we would go into the schools and teach art to kids. And I've always just very much had an educator mindset. And that's really how I approach real estate. I look at it as I am not in a sales business in any way, shape, or form. I am there to educate my clients, and I'm more of a guide and a teacher. So speaking just naturally fit for me. The funny thing is, I am a total introvert. If I have to go to a cocktail party, I would rather stick a fork in my eye. That sounds terrible to me, but I have no problems getting up in front of an audience on a stage of 1,000 people and speaking. That's very easy for me because I feel like I'm helping people when I teach and I'm sharing my ideas. And to me, I look at real estate as a very collaborative industry where we are all there to help each other. I think there's plenty of business for people. I don't understand the realtors who look at it as a competition and aren't helpful to one another. I feel like we should all be lifting each other up and sharing ideas. And I've grown my business from learning from other wonderful realtors around the country who shared tips with me, and I want to do the same with other people. And so that's really how I got into speaking, and I literally lay my playbook out there. I am a realtor who's in the trenches every day, doing real estate, and that was one of the things that got me into speaking was that I hated going to conventions and hearing from all of these people who never taught real estate or who had never done real estate or hadn't done real estate in decades. And they're telling me all these things. And I'm thinking that advice is totally outdated and makes no sense. Like, you don't know what you're talking about because you're not actually doing real estate. And so, for me, I want to share practical tips of what I am doing every single day that works.
And thank you for bringing that up because it's such an important part of what we try to bring to the conventions are speakers like you, speakers who are actively practicing. They're not one of those people who've been sitting on the sides who hasn't sold real estate in 20 years or, whatever. Like our group who picks our CE speakers has done such a fantastic job of making that a priority and finding speakers like you who are in there every day, who are speaking from experience, who know practical examples and relevant examples of what's going on in the industry right now. And it's so important. So I really appreciate you saying that and pointing that out because I do think it's such a key part of these conventions that we're able to bring people who know what they're talking about and are practicing living and breathing it every single day.
I think that's one of the things that makes the Ohio Realtor Convention very different from other conventions is that it is actually people who are in the trenches, realtors who are doing the work. And so I feel like it's a conference that you can go to and you actually learn from people who are doing this every day. And to me, that's so valuable.
It is. Well, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and thank you for recognizing that at our conferences. I know that's a big goal of ours is we want to make sure we're bringing in the top-notch speakers who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. So I'm glad that you see that in us too, because that's absolutely one of the goals we set when we put on some of these events. And you were talking just about conventions and being there and what that experience is like, and being an introvert at conventions. I think is something that we don't talk about enough, like what that experience is like. How do you kind of handle that being a speaker, knowing people recognize you or at your sessions are coming up to you? How do you navigate that as being someone who's not a super fan? Because I'm the same way. I'm like, I go to a cocktail party where I know no one, I like stand in the back corner and like sip on my champagne and that's all I could do.
Yeah. I think for me, I have to go take a nap after I speak because I am just exhausted. It's out of my comfort zone and I like doing it, but it's so tiring for me. So I think going to conferences where you're an attendee and you're an introvert, you do have to carve out some time for yourself to have quiet time to regenerate. I can't go to dinners every night. I have to go back to my room and watch a movie and order room service or do catch up on some work, things like that. I try to get up early and go for a walk every morning when I'm at a conference, so it's really important just carve out that time. And then I really look at it as, I'm here to learn as much as possible. So which speakers are going to help me meet those goals? And then it's really networking with other agents, and I try to have an agenda for that in terms of here are the questions I want to ask people. And so I look at it that way, but it is very tiring for us introverts. And so you got to carve out some time to protect yourself and have some downtime.
It's so true. And it's, you do it, you get out there, you meet, and there's so many benefits of it, right? But also making sure you have that time to recharge, to rest, reset. and get ready to do it all again the next day is so important. But that's a great tip to kind of come into it with some questions, prepare yourself already so you know what you want to get out of it, know what you're ready to ask when you're meeting those individuals. That's a really great way to kind of approach it, whether you're an introvert or not. I think that's really good to be thinking about as you're planning your sessions and as you're thinking about what you want to get out of this year's convention, which there's so much to get out of. And speaking of that, Shay, you're going to be speaking on what's new in 2025 on Tuesday the 16th, 11 to noon. So right before that lunch hour window, come get all of your information and insights onto what's new. Tell us a little bit about what you have cooked up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be talking about several different things. One is that video has really exploded this past year. And so you have to be doing video at this point. If you're not, you're going to start to fall behind because it's something sellers are starting to expect more often than in the past. So I'm going to give you some tips for easy ways to do videos, some different programs that we use, examples from across the country of great videos that people can do. And I think one of the things that's challenging as a realtor is we see these amazing videos online that are really not practical for our markets. And so I'm going to show you practical videos that you could actually make and do that are going to work in your market. It's, like you can't take videos of, $15 million listings in Beverly Hills and think those are going to work in Columbus. They're two different markets. And so I'm going to show you things you can actually do. I think the other thing that we're really going to have to talk about and face is that the market has changed. It has changed a lot over the last year. Last year, we were really freaked out about all the new rules in terms of buyer rep agreements and compensation. And, I think most of us have found that wasn't as big of a deal as we all thought it was going to be. What in fact has changed is the market itself. And in a lot of places, it has become much more of a buyer's market than we've seen before. And it's an interesting mix right now because we have kind of a tale of two cities going on in a lot of parts of Ohio, where we have some parts where it is still really a strong seller's market and you're seeing multiple offers and people waiving contingencies, but you have a lot of the rest of Ohio, which has now changed and is either a more balanced market or has moved to a much more buyer's market. And even in the areas that are still hot, we're finding buyers are being much pickier. They are not in a rush to put offers in. They're kind of sitting back and waiting because they know that maybe that the interest rate might go down in the future. They're worried about their job. They're worried about the economy. They don't want to put money into fixing up properties anymore because of the tariffs and how expensive things have gotten. So you really have to change how you're working with buyers and how you're working with sellers right now. And so I'm going to give you a lot of tips on that. And I think we also too have to really focus a lot more on lead generation than we ever have in the past because a lot of the market is a lot slower. And so you're going to have more leads coming in order to be able to sustain your same level of income that you had the last couple of years. So we're going to talk about a lot of lead generation ideas, how to work with buyers and sellers in this changing market and how to manage their expectations. Because I think sellers still think a lot of times it's this crazy hot market. Buyers are hesitant to put offers in. And so you have people really far apart in their understanding of the market. And then we're going to talk about, some social media marketing, video marketing, things like that. So there's going to be a lot that's jam-packed in that hour.
A lot. No, this is going to be an amazing class. So much to make sure you're thinking about as we head into that. And you're right, just the change and how quickly things have changed, especially if you think about from where we came, from COVID, and like you said, how many multiple offers we were dealing with and crazy home prices and things were flying off the shelves. And then everything we experienced last year with the settlement and buyer rep agreements and navigating that. And now we're in this, oh my God, well, mortgage rates are 6 and 7%. And who's going to want to buy in this? And this is crazy. And now all of this is kind of coming to a head. And we're really kind of seeing the impact of all of that, which you mentioned, in some cases is a lot. And in some, it's not so much. But things are changing so quickly. How do you keep track of it all and manage it all and learn how to navigate it? What's your practices for just getting through some of that?
I think you really have to sit down on kind of a month by month basis and figure out, okay, what is changing in my market and what do I need to do to adapt to those changes? One of the things that in the past 5 years, we were really focused on getting sellers. Now we're more focused on getting buyers because the buyers are hard in terms of they don't have a lot of motivation to put offers in a lot of the markets anymore. But my feeling is in some ways, they're more of a sure bet because they're probably going to buy at some point. Whereas right now, some markets with listings, you don't know if that listing is going to sell. Even if you're below market value, some places it feels like you have to almost give them away to get them to sell. And so we're seeing some of those sellers are just pulling their properties off the market and not selling. And so those aren't as sure of a bet anymore as they used to be. So I think you would have to figure out in your market, what is going to be best for you to bring in income? Is it focusing on buyers? Is it focusing on sellers? Is it focusing on investors? What it is? And is that, for your entire market, or are there certain segments? Are there certain areas, cities that you work where you need to focus on sellers because it is still a hot market? Are there other areas you need to focus on buyers? And so it really feels like on a month by month basis, you have to really sit down and reassess your business, and also reassess what changes are coming and how do you implement those in. And so we're going to talk about all of that.
Yeah, it's going to be really great to hear. And, a little bit before we started recording this episode, I was sitting in on Lawrence Yun's presentation and the rest of the economic team at NAR on what we can expect now that we're halfway through the year. And they were giving some, very interesting data points. Some of the stuff that you just mentioned, what is mortgage rates going to look like? What does the buyer's market look like? What does the seller's market look like? What are those hot cities that if we do see the feds cut the rate, that's really going to take off? And one of the examples that they showed that Lawrence Yun gave on his presentation was Cleveland, and just said Cleveland's really going to pop off if we see any, any movement, any downward movement in those mortgage rates. So that's all stuff that as realtors, we got to be paying attention to. And this new economic report that they released today, really great information. And that's a great place to go to that has some of those data points that you mentioned, Shay, that we should be talking about and paying attention to and making sure we're ready to discuss, with our clients. So we know what we're walking into and getting that Harvard negotiation class degree.
And just connecting with other realtors around the country. I always think that's really helpful, because eventually those trends kind of, start to shift nationwide. And so I really look at a lot of major cities and say, okay, what's going on there? Because that's probably going to start to trickle to the rest of the country, and so having conversations with agents in other markets about what's going on with their market, what are they seeing, what's working, what's not working, so you can start to prepare yourself better for what could be coming down the road.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I think you mentioned that earlier in the sense that hey, let's all work together. And, realtors are one of the very few and in between professions where you are working with your competitors, right? Like you are working on deals together and you're having to come together, but there is so much benefit. And I think realtors do such a great job of sharing with each other, of spending time with each other, of having those conversations. And the convention is just a really great opportunity and time and place to do that. What would you say to someone who's thinking about coming to your class? Give us a little bit of a, bit on what we can expect or why they should make sure to circle this as they're planning out their schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be a lot of me sharing what I see both in Chicago and the Denver markets in terms of what's working, what's not working and stuff. But I'm also going to have a lot of opportunity for Q&A. I want it to be a very interactive class. So come with questions, come with problems that you're experiencing so that we can talk about those and help you figure out some solutions, because most likely you're not the only one experiencing those problems. So we're going to try to have a good 10 minutes or so at the end for that Q&A section. So come prepared with those questions for me so that we can talk about them as a group and get you some solutions.
Yeah, no, love that. Always love a good Q&A. Be ready to ask those questions, bring your ideas, bring an open mind. For first timers, we're really trying to make sure our first timers are feeling included. We want to encourage, our new people who have never joined us before to come and take that leap and be there with us at convention. What would you say to first time attendees? What's your advice to them for navigating coming to conventions? And what would you say to our first timers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I always tell, so I've been doing this about 13 years now. I do about 150 to 200 deals a year between Chicago and Denver. And I remember my first year in business, I did one transaction for $131,000 and that was it, right? And then, it starts to ramp up your second year, your third year, you get busier, but it really takes until typically I find the end of your third year where you're making decent money. So the asset that you have that first and second year as a new agent is you have time. And so coming to the convention and taking as many classes as you can, meeting as many people as you can, that is a great use of your time. And you should be focused this first year or two on how do I lead generate? Because you should be spending 50% of your time trying to get new clients. That's the whole point of this. And I think you should be spending the other 50% building systems. And so building things like a great website, having a really great CRM with drip campaigns that you can send out to people, once they go under contract, when you meet them at an open house, all of your closed buyers, all those kinds of things. And so to me, when you come to convention, those are kind of the two things that you should look for classes on. Systems, how do I do systems? How do I lead generate? Any sort of customer service, those kinds of things. Those are the tracks that are really good, I think, for those first time convention attendees or newer agents.
Yeah, no, that's a great bit of advice. A lot of great things to think about if you are a first time attendee. And we have so much planned for first time attendees, for non. I mean, really, there's so much you can do. Immerse yourself in it all. It's going to be an amazing time. And we get to hear from people like Shay. And it's going to be so much fun. So Shay, I want to thank you again so much for joining us today. We are so excited to see you in just a very few short weeks. By the time this episode airs, it will almost be time. We cannot wait to see you in Cleveland, and we're so excited for what you have in store for us.
I can't wait to be there and meet you all in person. So please come to my class. I would love to see you. I promise it's not going to be a fluffy class. I'm going to give you lots of actionable tips you can put in and implement as soon as you leave my class that are really going to help you grow your business and make more money, because that is really the goal for all of us. We want to make more money. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this business working. So come to my class and I promise you that will happen.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, Shay will be speaking on Tuesday, September 16th, 11 a.m. to noon. What's new in 2025? Learn her video tips, learn how to lead gen, learn all the wonderful things that she has to share with us. It's going to be an amazing time. Make sure you guys get registered right now, ohiorealtors.org/convention. All of the details, including Shay's class and all the other amazing sessions we have in store for you, you can find right there. And we will see you guys in Cleveland. Shay, thanks so much again. We'll be back with you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.